No, that'll do it, please. Thank you. Hey, good morning. So I'm just here at Starbucks, treating myself to a venti extra hot latte. It's kind of a bit of a celebration today. So, but I still need to do my good life. So let me just pay for this real quick. Hi there. There you go. Not so busy, huh?
Thank you.
It's hard to believe there's nobody in line here at the Starbucks. So, yeah, I just made a video. I don't even know what I'm going to call it. It'll upload before this one. It's a pretty big day for my family and I. For our thanks for a 3-odd year endeavor to return to the United States. But anyway, let's do it. So the good life is an activity that I perform every day to remind myself of my principles and my objectives in reverse order, and to get myself prepared for the day. Every day is a challenge. Every day is a microcosm of its own, a microcosm of life. Including a dawn, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and challenges along the way that need to be addressed in a good way. And it's easy to let the days flow away like sand through your hands, and before you know it, it's all empty, and then you're gone, and oblivion awaits. So instead, I try to remind myself that that this is. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, you too. Thanks. Try to remind myself that this is the day. This is the day. And better do a good job. So here we go. The affirmation of human and civil rights. Humans have rights that need to be considered when planning things out and enacting laws. Like I'm a lawgiver, I'm a voter, and I'm also a conscientious consumer and citizen. Conscientious consumer. So am I taking people's civil rights into consideration when I buy soup at the store? I don't know. I'm in a giddy mood, but it's important to me to keep those things in mind. The smaller units of society and the individuals as well. That's why we have laws and principles with our society that help us to remind and inform our institutions and ourselves of these things. So next is the 3 objectives. The first of these is the development and maintenance of good, sound life principles. That's what I'm doing now. 2 is the execution of good emotional reactions to the challenges of life. And 3 is the performance of good actions per the aforementioned principles. Let's get on now to those. There are 14. I used to do that with one hand. I used to be able to say there were 6 principles. Now I gotta say there's 14 principles. Hands on the wheel. First of those is the atomic principle, bits and pieces. Everything is transitory, falling apart. The stuff of which I'm made will be recycled into other things. All of the great writers of the past, Melville, that I love so much. Melville, Hawthorne, Thoreau, Emerson. Their molecules which made them up are still out there, and but they are no more. And it's a sobering reminder and caution to not take for granted the composition of which I am so briefly made, and for which there is no appears to be no tentative. There's nothing ephemeral or spiritual behind that. Everything of which I'm made seems to be tied to this physical being. At least there's no evidence that that is connected to anything else. And when the lights go out here, the lights go out for good, and all that remains then is the decomposition, and eventually the utter dissolution of my being, as well as my being, my essence, and my works, all gone. The second principle is the principle of nature. Everything has a particular nature. I always pick something out. I could see an airplane flying in the sky. The nature of that airplane is to perform a very specific function, to be a vehicle for the transport of human beings and goods from one place to another, to utilize principles of aerodynamics, to be able to fly through the air, to have a safety apparatus in place, to have procedural procedures that are executed by the personnel who run the airplane, as well as those who ride on the airplane, to ensure safe transport and operation. To be made of parts that can be replaced, to be the product of a specific manufacturer, to have like competitors that are similar but different, to be a particular model that is an instantiation of a design principle, of design, not principle, but of a design that will be modified and refined over time. To have lights on either side that indicate port and starboard, up and down. To be able to stay up aloft for a certain amount of time, and then to fall to the ground if that time is exceeded without returning to the air or refueling in some way. Those are some of the principles of an airplane, or the nature of an airplane. Likewise, living things have a nature too. I spend a lot of time talking about inanimate objects, don't I? I think yesterday I talked about street reflectors. So, maybe I'll spend more time talking about animals and plants and us. So it's worthwhile to recognize the nature of other things and also of ourselves. It's also worthwhile to recognize the paradigm of living things. The paradigm, inanimate objects don't have excuse me, a paradigm. That airplane has a character inherent of its design and engineering, but no paradigm, because paradigm has to couples both function with perspective, and it requires a mind of sorts to have a paradigm. So can a plant have a paradigm? Wasn't I talking about this 2 days ago? Can a plant have a paradigm? Can have a nature? Interesting. No, because it has to have a perspective. I don't know if a plant has a perspective. I have to dig down into what the nature. Whoa, stay in your lane, big truck. I have to dig down into what the nature of perspective is to weed that one out. Something to do over my break. So, note to self, put a pin in that. So, you and I have a particular nature. My nature is to walk alone in wild places, to think, and to sometimes write those thoughts down or record them on video. To court the muse, which it's fun. It's fun. I'm more and more able to get the muse to come on demand these days, and that's not boasting. It's just, I think it's coming out of a practice. Last night I went for my swim, and after the swim, while I was walking back, I summoned the muse, which the muse is what comes when the words flow through my mind. And it takes usually some catalyst like music or drink to make that happen, or both. But if you do excess of either, then it comes out nonsense. But if you get just the right amount, or if you can just get the right mood, and I'm more and more able to do that on demand, then the muse can come and the words flow. It's another one of those things that we used to ascribe that to some elsewhere or else thing, but really it's just a result of, appears to be a result of chemical actions. I digress. So there's one more piece of that. We'll finish on the paradigm. The paradigm is perspective and nature. So what is your paradigm? What is my paradigm? What is the paradigm of our shared culture, of our different cultures, different language groups, of our gender, all these things? It's good to keep that in mind. And I'm going fast because I already did a video before this, which is going to consume some time. I may run out of memory, so got to wrap this up quick. The next piece is firmware. Firmware is the part that boots us, the hard coating of our brain, the lower, the reptilian brain pieces, you know, the instinctual attraction to others, the drive to life. Well, who is it called? The will to life. Which philosopher was it that talked about the will to life? Can't remember. But it's all of that, and I just want to point that out because, you know, it was informative. It was important when we were in our evolutionary past to make sure that we come to a certain age and seek out a mate and reproduce and raise our children and care for them and look after the community and then get the heck out of the way and die. And a lot of that's very important now, but we don't need to do it quite like we used to. There's plenty of us. So if you want to spend your life and either not follow those or ignore them. It's okay to do that. Ignore them at your peril, though, because that's a tough one. If you feel those drives, it's hard to make them go away. But if you don't feel those drives, but other people want you to feel those drives, you don't necessarily have to listen. You can live your life alone. You can live your life childless. You can live your life without pursuing the career that others want you to have. It can be just fine. But watch out if that's what you want too. If it's a part of your nature, then it might be good to do. Next is the principle of maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is that circumstance where you've got both experience and the willingness and the ability to exercise that experience for making good choices. Wisdom is the experience part that you gain over a course of a lifetime. Fortitude, the sub-principle fortitude, is the strength that it takes to push through according to the wisdom, or in spite of the fact that you made bad choices along a course that you think. No, that's not the way I said. Fortitude is being able to withstand the difficulty of making bad choices in order to get back on track, or to stay the course where you may have been received instruction that it's a good thing to do, even though it may not feel like the right thing. That's tricky, because what if that's just abiding someone else's nature, or the nature of a society, or the paradigm of a society, in spite of your own nature? Watch out for that one. Wow, there's a cul-de-sac to get hung up in, huh? Okay, sorry, I need a sip. As if I'm not hyper enough. Next is the social principle. Human beings are social animals. We need one another to survive. I always repeat this the same way. Our best ends are social ends, and social good is a refined, distilled form of good. Very potent. Good stuff. I recommend being a social animal. Tough, and that's coming from a guy that isn't. I don't have much interest in society. Don't have much interest in fraternity. Don't have much interest in friends. Don't have much interest in being with other people, very much at all. Really, really prefer being alone. Yet, I recognize the importance of that and strive to do that to the best of my ability. Next is temperance, which is controlling our consumption. Don't get a Vendy size, get a small size. But here's something, and also deciding sometimes to not do it. I mean, I control my consumption of Starbucks by not having one every day. I usually typically allow myself 2 Starbucks a week. That's all about to change because to a degree, because my allowance went up. Although I could use the allowance for better purposes, like buying more hiking gear, better hiking gear, or give it away or whatever. There's lots of better things to do with it. But I'm just kind of enjoying the experience right now. It's been a long 3 years of frugality, which will remain my life. I'll still live with my family, and I will still live a frugal lifestyle. But at least we won't be in such debt anymore. We've got that pretty much taken care of, and we'll be saving and furthering our retirement and getting our kids through college. I'm way off top. Back on it. Temperance, the controlled consumption of goods, services, activities, and emotions. That's the one that's key for me, is to be able to feel a rise of emotion in my breast, and then to nibble away at it, and not let it spew out like a volcano. Next is the principle of agency and indifference. Everything that's alive that has some force of will, there's where that will thing is. Some force of will is an agent. So plants certainly have a will. They don't have, that's the confusion. Plants have a will, but they don't necessarily have a perspective, because it takes an awareness to have a perspective. Well, maybe they do in their planty sort of a way. I don't know. They've certainly got a will that they enforce on the world, and that's where agency is. Inanimate objects, lifeless objects, don't have any will, and certainly no perspective. Maybe they do. Maybe they do have a perspective. But it's an inorganic perspective. What a strange couple of words to put together. Inorganic and perspective. Boy, that's a funny one. Another one to think about over break. So, anyway, agency is everything that's alive, and the artifacts of those agents are the things that they create. This shirt, this car, this cup, coffee within. the beans that made the coffee. Those are artifacts of the agency. And it's comforting to be surrounded by all that. That's why we go shopping. That's why we spend our time indulging in spending money, because it's a distracting thing. It's like looking at sparkles. Oh, sparkly, and not noticing the dark abyss of night that is beyond. And that's called the great indifference, which is everything else that is when you subtract out all the agents and their artifacts, you're left with the great indifference, which a lot of people never encounter their entire life. But it's out there. In fact, it's right below the surface of where you are right now. Everything that's around here is just a thin veneer over the great indifference. It's challenging, but you can push through that veneer and see it. I can be in a meeting at work, and if I have a moment of where I don't need to be thinking or necessarily paying attention, I can try to push through the veneer and see the great indifference just below the heavy oaken desk, and just past the face of my wonderful coworkers. So, but the caution is that because we're not comfortable with the great indifference, we want to make up agents and ascribe their agency and their will to all things, and therein God permeates the universe and is the architect of all, and the universal agent, which for all intents and purposes appears to be a very sweet story with no real reason to believe it. Thus is the reason people have to have faith, which is it gets you to be able to believe something that you wouldn't have otherwise a good reason to believe. So watch out for that, because you can live your whole life, fooled by an illusion, a comforting illusion, a distracting illusion. And when it's shared with others, wow, the potency there. And what a shame to spend a whole lifetime, worshiping a glitter ball. What the hell does that mean? I was trying to think of worshiping something that's shiny and bright and distracting and comforting, but has no real footing in reality. And worse yet, maybe killing others for their lack of belief. Yeah. Okay, the best seat in the house. Gosh, it just drives me nuts, that stuff. The best seat in the house is a perspective of not want to be or do anything else, be anyone else, but be all right with who I am. Well, here's one of those big heavy records. I've been watching that TV show, the Hell's Highway to Hell, and one of these big records that tow truck for big trucks. Oh, get back on track, Kurt. I'm going to run out of time. So the best seat in the house is where we are at any particular time, not wanting to be anyone. I already said all that. Okay. Being all right with where I am along the way, as well as the high moments. I got to go fast. The next is another one. It's the same company. Let's see if I can turn it. You can see. It's Anaheim Towing. You can see it in the back. These giant, $500,000 tow trucks right behind me. You can't see it though. Okay. Back on track, Kurt. Okay. So next is reason, the governing faculty, the ability to look at the facts of the world, make sense of them, make arguments, that yield predictions, see if the predictions are real. Which, if so, then we're maybe onto something. If not, then refine our model. Next is purpose and virtue. Without God, we have no absolute purpose other than to reproduce. So it's up to us as sentient agents to utilize our reasoning ability and our ability to work together to come up with the worthwhile purpose that are objective and a good use of our life. To that end, I've decided my purpose is virtue, to live a virtuous life, Whereas virtue is clearly defined as, for me, as the pursuit of activities and pursuit of decisions and activities that improve the well-being of as many as possible, and that includes other species other than our own. Keeping moving along. So the next is the best seat in the house. The path of wildness, which is a way of getting unstuck from a situation in life by looking at all the options, thinking them over, gathering as many facts as I can, and then if I can't make a decision in the time allotted to me based on objective consideration, then I go with my gut and lunge out of the mud pit headlong into whatever direction I choose, fully prepared to stumble off the edge of a cliff or into a patch of briars, but where the very fact of moving myself, of unsticking myself, is a great thing, because you can spend your whole life stuck, and you may not realize it, but you get stuck early on, and then you just modify, you decorate, and you gussy up and try to make comfortable the mud hole in which you're embedded, but you're still in a mud hole, and you can live your whole life in that mud hole. And boy, there's a risk that comes with that. I'll get to that in just a second. Actually, it's next. The risk of avoiding risk. So if you don't do that, if you don't exercise the path of wildness, or exercise your will along the path of wildness and live according to your nature, you may avoid the surface level risk and then fall right into the trap of the deeper risk, which is a very, very, very dark risk, and that's the risk of not living according to your nature, and which leads on to my principle coming up in just a second, which is the principle of sin. And actually, it's the next one. It's nice the way these are kind of organized. I didn't really intend it that way, but the next principle is sin and damnation. It's a sin to not live according to your nature, as long as that nature is a social nature and not one that you're going to be hurting and compromising the well-being of others in the process. But if you've got that kind of nature, then it's better to not act on that. But if your nature is a social nature for the most part, and a virtuous nature, but it's just simply embarrassing or strange or weird or something that the others may frown on, but you don't live according to that, then you fall into the trap. And you may find yourself avoiding the risk of embarrassing yourself through living the life you want to live, but in the end, you end up sinning against your own nature, and you end up damned to a life of regret and frustration and anger over what you perceived you probably missed, which even if you don't think about it consciously, it's in the back. And that is the damnation to live that way. And for some, it's extreme. They really do become monsters. And it can consume you utterly. And if you think you can put it off until later in life, wait until you're retired and then do it, good luck with that. You might be able to do that, but I would challenge you that the person that you will become by that time will bear no resemblance to the actual nature of the time, the blossoming portion of your life, when your calling was rejected. Your calling, that's not the right word. I guess it is in a way. It's a calling according to your nature. That doesn't mean we all should run off and, tramp around the world with a backpack necessarily, or maybe it does. I'll leave you guys to sort out the details. So I just knocked off 3 right there, right? I knocked off the risk of avoiding risk, sin and damnation, and the last one, oblivion there, second to last. Oblivion's what awaits. There appears to be no afterlife. There appears to be nothing after this, no reincarnation, except other than the fact that our molecules and atoms get reused. And that also means that there is no justice in the afterlife. There is no salvation. There is no returning or seeing loved ones who have gone before us. They're gone. Utter complete oblivion awaits all of us. And I'm not saying that saying that that's the way I know it's going to be. That's the way, the position that I have based on what I've experienced so far. No one's been able to show me any good reason to think that there's anything otherwise. So I operate from the perspective that there isn't. It's kind of the default position based on what I see, until someone can show me otherwise. And I'm actively looking otherwise. I don't see it. So you better live now. You better live according to your nature now. You better live virtuously. You better live a social life. You better live the best life that you possibly can. Try to live a good life. And finally, the willful time management, the actively deciding how to use my time today so that I squeeze the best value out of it, because in all likelihood I'm dying tonight, and this will be the last chance I have. I better get my affairs in order this day, this hour, this minute. And now finally, today's thought plan is to I don't know how I get gas from from latte. There's no carbonation. Maybe it's the foam. That's it. So 1, collect my thoughts before breakfast. 2, compose them over lunch. 3, to record them over dinner. And 4, die before bedtime. Keep getting lucky. I keep avoiding the death before bedtime, but it's gonna happen. If I keep it up, one of these days it's gonna happen. Like James Randi, every morning he would get up, the magician and skeptic, he would get up every morning and write on a piece of paper. And says, he'd write the date and say, today I, James Randi, will die. And he'd put it in his pocket. And the idea was that if he died that day, someone would pull it out and say, I, James Randi, would die today. And how would he know? It was the greatest hoax that I don't know if he still does that. He's still around. So now today's action plan: to live a sincere, genuine, immediate, indifferent to the things that are outside of my control life, and to live a just life, and a social life, a social day today. And finally, the rotten day forecast, as I always say, it's all going to happen today. The end is coming. The lights are going out for everyone around me, including me, including my job, including my health, my bank account. It's always a struggle to say this one because it sounds so weird, but it has value. I better wrap it up now. I'm really out of time. So today's human hashtags, if I stop, that's because the camera ran out. Human hashtags, hashtag objective, hashtag honest, hashtag indifferent, hashtag just, hashtag discreet. And I'll leave it at that. Have a great life. Have a good day. Have a good life. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.